Hey mamas, welcome to Breastfeeding Relief with Bethany. We share incredible stories, tips, and breastfeeding ideas to help on your journey. I'm your host, Bethany Laverne, a lactation consultant and speech therapist who helps mamas with breastfeeding. Not all breastfeeding stories are the same, and we dive into those topics. Welcome, Kristy. How are you today?
I'm well. I'm really well. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks so much for being on the podcast. So I want you to go ahead and talk about yourself and how many children you have.
Well, I'm a mum to twin girls that are 9 years old. So I've only had I've had two pregnancies. One we lost, sadly, and my twins were my second pregnancy through IVF, actually.
Awesome. I am also an IVF mom.
It's an amazing journey, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Ours was a 5-year journey. So sometimes they're long journeys too.
Yeah. Ours was about a 2-year journey.
Okay.
With 2 goes and successful both goes, but we sadly lost our first pregnancy. So
I'm sorry about that.
My girls are the second outcome of the second IVF go, and we were very lucky, to have both of those girls be really healthy, and we got to full term in terms of twin timeline. So it was about 37 and a half weeks, which is considered full term for twins. So
that's amazing.
Really lucky. Yeah, definitely. Awesome. And I'm also work as a psychologist, and I work with mums and women in particular, and take a real lifestyle health, or lifestyle medicine, they call it, perspective, which looks at nutritional psychology and being in green spaces and therapeutic horticulture, and how that supports our health and well-being.
Awesome. I love that. That fits in so perfectly. So why don't you tell us about your breastfeeding journey? Because I bet it's a little different than just a single baby journey.
Yeah. Look, I was really fortunate when I was pregnant with twins. I really wanted to breastfeed. I kept my mind open that perhaps I couldn't, because I knew a lot of women around me that really struggled with breastfeeding. But I wanted to set myself up well. And I was very, very lucky to find a lactation consultant who had twins.
Oh, so fantastic.
She really, really understood I guess the challenges of breastfeeding multiple children, and the importance of, I guess, not just about looking after the little ones, but looking after mum through that breastfeeding journey as well. So she was really great in talking about, the importance of sleep, the importance of my own nutrition, the importance of getting as much help as I can, because it's going to be really time consuming, of course, but also energy consuming when you're trying to produce enough milk for 2 babies. That's really hard on a nutritional standpoint, to make sure that I'm well resourced to be able to provide for the little ones. So she was amazing in setting me up for that and thinking about how I'm going to manage that, where the babies are going to be even close to the bed, so that to try and make it as easy as possible for me to get off on the right track and make it as successful as possible. So I was so fortunate to have her in my life, and she was going to be there. With twins, and they were both breached, so I had a scheduled C-section.
Okay.
And she was going to be there after the C-section to help me with the latching on process. So she was very much about a natural latch. I'm not quite sure what they call it. You probably know the terminology better than I, but it was more about allowing the baby to rest on your chest and allowing the baby to move in a way that they came to the breast themselves, and that there was some theory and perhaps some research that helped that latch be stronger if the babies were self-led latching. I don't know what that terminology was.
Yeah, the breast crawl. Is that what you're thinking of?
perhaps. Yeah. Okay. And it's allowing the babies to be able to come in their own time and use their own muscles to get there. And so she talked about that beforehand, but my waters broke the day before I was scheduled. So unfortunately, she couldn't be there the day that the babies came.
Oh, shoot.
And so I had this idea in mind of what was going to happen. But the babies came earlier, and I had a hospital midwife or nurse came, and it was really awful. So they didn't discuss with me about how I wanted to do that. They literally grabbed the babies and shoved them on my breast.
Yep.
That was it. That was the beginning of our journey together.
Oh, no.
And it felt very clinical.
Okay. Yep.
Kind of, I don't know. She took the magic out of that experience for me, and certainly what I had in mind, what I wanted. But they latched well, and there were no concerns there. My lactation consultant did come the next day when she was scheduled to come, and we talked about it. And she was really, really lovely. She was like, she was very disappointed with the nurses around that.
Oh, sure.
She had a conversation with them around what my desires were. And she ended up, even though their first latch was through this kind of clinical, just throw them on my breast, she still got the babies out, and we still did that, put them on close to on my chest, and had them kind of come up to me and latch on more naturally. And so I still got that experience, but it wasn't that first experience, unfortunately. But it shows that real difference between that hospital system, very clinical, the staff are very busy, let's just get on with business, to having a different perspective, which is a bit more gentle and lovely.
And that's I also had a hospital birth, but I made sure I had a doula because I wanted, we couldn't have midwives in the hospital, but I wanted the doula to really advocate for me. And, there's lots of stuff that I feel like they push past mamas, and don't really let even with just consents, like they just kind of do, and you're told later. And I said, no, these are a lot of things I don't want, and please help advocate for me, because I know I'm not going to know or see it or understand, and my husband's not going to understand either, and he's not going to know what to say, and he's not going to be pushy because we're in a hospital,
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think with your first babies as well, everything is so unknown and so new, and you want to get it right. And you just don't know. You are really trusting of the wisdom of the nurses and the health staff and other women to support you through that. So I love that idea that you had a doula there to advocate for you. I think that's such a valuable thing to have with you, because you're so vulnerable in so many different ways in that setting, with so many people in power or authority around you. But also, if you've had a C-section, you've been cut open, you're under the influence of analgesics, or you're not 100% yourself.
Right. Yeah. I also advocate for mamas having oh shoot, I just lost the word.
Don't you hate that?
I do. And as a speech pathologist too. Yeah. It's always awful when you lose the word.
It'll come back.
It will. A birth plan. There we go.
A birth plan, yes.
So I always say mamas should have a birth plan to say what you do and don't want. I especially said, I don't want a C-section. I understand there are cases where you need an emergency C-section. I also said, I don't want an epidural, and do not ask me. I do not, I will let you know. And so my nurse, she read it and she said, I will not ask you. You have to ask me. And so I had an amazing nurse. I was only there for like 3 hours before I had my baby. But yeah, you just have to advocate for yourself and have a good support system. And in the States, you can usually have 2 support people. And so I really advocate for a doula. They're around about $1,000 where I live right now. And I think it was worth every penny.
Yeah. Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
It's such an important thing. And even I think about those first few nights. I stayed in the hospital for a few nights and totally naive to what to do with 2 little babies, having had a C-section, just not knowing what to do when the babies were crying. And I was told, because I'd lost a lot of blood through that, to not get up through the night, to use the midwives or the nurses if the babies were calling out, to get them to bring them over for breastfeeding.
Sure.
And I would call for the nurses to come when they were crying, and they were so annoyed that I was calling them to pass the babies over. Like you could feel it, you could see it.
Sure.
There was a lot of frustration in those nurses. They wanted me to just get up and do the thing. It was it was not a nice experience.
And I'm sorry to hear that.
I think about that time, and I wish I had a strong advocate to empower me to be able to ask for what I needed and to feel confident that that was the right thing to do.
Sure.
Where it just wasn't that case, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, that's why I've started this podcast, so moms can hear different stories, hear about multiples, hear about different countries, to be able to advocate for themselves, to find doulas, to find, whatever they feel they need here. Because I just don't feel like it's talked about enough. Yeah. So now I want to know, what is one thing about breastfeeding you didn't know that you wish you would have known before you had your girls?
Good question. Probably just how draining it would be. So I had twins. I'm sure this is not the same story for everyone, or for a single story, single birth, what do you call it? Single mum,
a mom with one baby.
One baby, yes. But it having 2 or having multiple children that you're feeding at once is incredibly draining on the system. And even though I had a lactation consultant who tried to educate me on that, I could not fathom just how exhausted I would be, and the importance of people feeding me well during that experience. I wish I had better resourced myself with food, I think, beforehand. And so my interest in nutritional psychology actually came out of having twins, having a little one with colic. So really struggled with digesting milk, and she would screech all the time. And that's a really, really hard experience. But I feel blessed actually having twins. So I had a very easy baby, where feeding was very easy, sleeping was very easy for her, and my other little one, I would say, was highly sensitive, so things were hard for her. And if I had a single child, either one, I would probably think it was something I was doing. So if I had an easy baby, I would think I was the best mother, and it was because I was doing something wonderful, and I would be obnoxious and telling other parents what they should do. But if I just had my more sensitive child equally, I would think it would be something I was doing wrong. And I would be, full of self-doubt around that. And there was something I was doing wrong. But I had two at the same time, the same mum, the same womb, the same environment. And I had two really different children with different sensitivities and needs. And so in a way, it helped me take the ego out of it and go, actually, there's something about what babies bring to this story, their own temperaments, their own needs. And I've just got to be the best I can be for what they bring to this story, that maybe it's not about me completely. Obviously I need to show up and be the best mum I can be. But children come into the world with their own needs as well. And it was such a humbling experience to have that, to kind of go, actually, it's not me. There's two little people that have very different needs. We've gone off on a tangent here, but
it's okay.
Yeah. What was your original question? Was about the importance of nutrition, I think.
Yeah. That's okay. What is one item that helped you, or one of your favorite breastfeeding products or items?
For me, for twins, it was having a chair that was wide. So really wide enough to be able to fit both babies. So I used to do what they call in Australia, the football hold. I don't know if you call it
the football hold. Yeah, have them off the side.
Yeah, off the side. And so being able to hold them both like that and rest my elbows on a chair and it be comfortable, and with a footrest as well. So for me, it was an IKEA. It was I don't even know what it's called, but a super wide chair where I could hold both babies comfortably. My back felt really supported and I could put my feet up. That was the bomb. We still have that chair. They're 9 years old now and they sort of still fit in it as we read books or something together. But yeah, that was the best thing I could have bought I did buy for that journey.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I still love mine. The rocker portion is, it doesn't work anymore. So that bums me out, but I still love that chair. I read to my boys their books before bed every night in that chair, and it has a foot rocker stool also. So, yeah. So I agree with you. Invest in a good chair, Mom.
Invest in a good chair. Definitely. Can I also say one thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
In my journey of breastfeeding is that, especially as a mum of multiples, was that I connected with, in Australia, we have what's called the Multiple Mums Birth Association.
Okay.
I think that's their full title. So it ran by mums of multiples. And I joined that group, and it was connecting with those mums who were already further along the journey of being a mum to multiples, who knew exactly what that was like, coming home, trying to figure out breastfeeding, trying to get into a schedule, just how challenging that can be when you might have two little ones with different needs. They came to the house, they talked to me, they knew that kind of shell shock you get when you bring two little babies home. And one of the things that they would often talk about was being okay and getting rid of the guilt around doing some substituting with just formula, especially in that late afternoon, kind of 4 o'clock feed, where there's nothing left in your tank and perhaps nothing left in your body's tank either. And so, and I felt like I was running out. There was nothing, and the babies were really grizzly. And giving myself permission just to do that one feed with a formula at that really difficult time where we're all tired, we're all grizzly, really took the edge off or the pressure off, and made that the breastfeeding experience actually much more enjoyable, because it would just help.
Yes. I call that the witching hour, right before dinner starts. I still have toddlers and I call that the witching hour still. I don't know what happens from 4 to 7, but some days you're just like, so much.
it's too much, right?
It is, yeah.
It's just too much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so that was a really good piece of advice for me. And it certainly took any sense of guilt off as well, to know that a lot of these multiple mums were also just kind of topping up with that, and just giving themselves permission to do that if they needed it, if they just felt there was nothing left in their tank to give.
I think that's awesome. I had an interview the other day with another mom that also said, if you need more sleep, it's okay to let your partner give your baby a bottle, whether that's formula, whether that's pumped milk. And I definitely did that with my second son. So we would put our first son to bed. I would nurse our second son. And then my husband would give our second son a bottle, and I would get a longer stretch of sleep. And he would usually wake me around midnight and say, okay, you're on for the rest of the night because I got to go to work tomorrow, but it gave me, he's a night owl. And so it gave me that longer time to sleep. And I felt like I did better through the night. He would make sure my water was refilled and a snack was next to the bed for me. So, it's okay to ask for help from your partner. And even if, he can't breastfeed, he can give a bottle for you. So, yeah, I think that's wonderful advice.
And I think mum's mental health, out of all the possible influences on your kids, mum's mental health is the number one. If mum's good, you're going to have the best influence on your little ones. So if you need that sleep, or if you need that formula, or extra help, so that you can function and be your best self.
Absolutely.
Do it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on and talking to us today. Can you let everyone know how they can connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my business is called In My Mother's Kitchen, and that actually refers to being in nature and looking at nature and nutrition as a way to support our health and well-being. So you could look at, go to Instagram, Facebook, or website. It's inmymotherskitchen.com.au.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your advice and wisdom today.
No, my pleasure. Lovely speaking to you.
Thank you so much for listening in. If you loved this episode, it would mean so much if you would share it with another mama or post on social media and tag me. I want to personally thank you for wanting to help other mamas. You got this. I'm rooting for your breastfeeding journey.